student. Welcome to the class of operating system. Today we are going to discuss about input-output management. From that, today we are going to discuss about the input-output hardware. So the topic of today are the different input-output devices. We are going to discuss about device controllers, synchronous and asynchronous input output. We are also going to discuss about communication to input output devices, and next we are going to discuss about polling versus interrupt. So these are the topic of today. So firstly we are going to discuss about the input output devices. So it is a very important job of an operating system to manage various input-output devices like mouse, keyboard, touchpad, disk drives, display adapters, USB devices, bitmap screen, LED, analog to digital converter, on-off switch, network connections, audio input-output, printers, etc. So these are the many input-output devices are available in the system. Just like the operating system manage every other devices, the input-output device, the management of the input-output device is also a important task of the operating system. So the most commonly input-output device we can imagine that keyboard, mouse, these are the mostly used input-output devices. There are some many others like touchpad, disk drives. So keyboard and mouse, these are mostly used for input, and output can be taken from the computer monitor. Okay, so there are many input output devices are available like USB devices, LED. There are many thing that is we some for some purposes we require an analog to digital converter. So these are all whatever is going to give a input to that system, that is my input devices, and what are going to take output from the system, those are all the output devices. And operating system, the job of the operating system is to manage all those devices. That means relate all those devices with the processor or the activity of the processor. Okay, so now we are going to discuss about those devices. So the IO devices. So all these devices are basically hardware. So we are going to discuss, these are can be of two categories, block devices and character devices. Now what is block devices? So a block device is one with which the drive communicates by sending entire blocks of data. When the drive is going to send the entire blocks of data, data is not going to be distributed among characters. The total block is going to be communicated with a particular device. Then those are called block device. So, for example, for in hard disk, USB cameras, disk on key, in every those places, the data, those are all block devices because in which the driver communicates by sending entire blocks of data. One thing I want to mention here, for every device there must be a driver. A driver is going to communicate with the device and the system. Okay, we are going to discuss about driver later also. So the next category is character devices. In case of block devices, the total data can be transferred as a block. The entire block of data can be sent. But If it's not possible, then a character device is one with which the driver communicates by sending and receiving single characters. It can be a bytes, it can be a octaves. So for example, serial ports, parallel ports, sound cards, etc., by which whenever we are going to communicate, or the system is going to communicate with all these devices, then the driver is communicates by sending and receiving single character. The entire block of data cannot be communicated using the driver. So here the communication is done character by character, and in case of block devices, the entire block can be sent. So now we are going to discuss about device controller. Here you can see the memory, monitor, keyboard, USB drive, disk drive. These are all different devices. And here we have controller of all these. We have a memory controller, we can have a video controller for monitor, a keyboard controller is also there, a USB controller is also present for USB drive, the disk drive, for disk drive we have disk controller. So for every device we have a controller. Okay, so what are those? The device drivers are software modules that can be plugged into an operating system to handle a particular device. The operating system takes help from device drivers to handle all input-output device. So I have just mentioned that for every device there must be a driver, and the driver is basically the controllers. So the drivers is basically used for the control the device. Okay, so it is basically a software modules. Those software modules are plugged into the operating system, and on behalf of that particular device, that device must be a hardware device. So on behalf of that particular device, we are going to use the device driver for control. Now, device controller works like an interface between the device and the device driver. So the device is basically what? The device is a hardware device, and device driver is basically the corresponding software which is going to handle that particular device. And that software is going to plugged on the operating system. Now what is device controller? The device controller works like an interface between the device and the device driver. The input-output units like keyboard, mouse, printer, etc. typically consist of a mechanical component and an electronic component, where electronic component is called the device controller. Okay. Now, there is always a device controller and a device driver for each device to communicate with the operating system. A device controller may be able to handle multiple devices. As an interface, its main task is to convert serial bit stream to block of bytes, perform error correction as necessary. Any device connected to the computer is connected by a plug and socket, and the socket is connected to a device controller. Following is a model. So this is basically the model for the, here you can see every device is connected with a plug or socket, and the device controller, that is basically the electronic component of that particular device, is going to act as a device controller. Okay, and there must be a communication bus between all the devices and CPU. Okay, where by the communication bus all those are getting connected. Okay, you can see the communication bus through which all devices are connected, and they are also connected with the CPU. Okay, now we are going to discuss about some synchronous and asynchronous input output. So first we are going to discuss synchronous versus asynchronous input output. So when we are talking about asynchronous input output, that means the CPU execution waits while input output is processed. Synchronous means what? So whenever we are talking about some communication, then synchronization can be needed. So synchronization is basically what? Whenever some operation is performing, other operations are blocked in that situation. So until that particular input output operations are complete, the CPU execution is blocked. When the input output completion is over, then with the output of that particular input output, the CPU execution is going to continue. But if we are talking about asynchronous input output, it can be possible that with the input output operation, the CPU execution can also parallelly done. So in case of synchronous, the CPU executions are going to be blocked until the in IO operation perform. But when we are talking about the asynchronous IO, the CPU execution can parallelly execute. So now we are going to discuss about the communication to IO devices. Because we need to communicate with the IO devices, the CPU must have a way to pass information to and from an IO device. So whenever the IO requirement is generated, obviously there must be a way to communicate. And CPU also, the processor also wants to communicate with the IO. So there must be a way from CPU to IO, a communication path between CPU to IO and from IO to CPU. That is very much important. And for this purpose, three approaches can be there by which the CPU can communicate with the devices. Okay. So the first one is the special instruction IO. The second one is the memory mapped IO. And the third one is the direct memory access or DMA. So let us learn about special instruction IO. This uses CPU instructions. Those are specifically made for controlling IO devices. These instructions typically allow data to be sent to an IO device and read from an IO device. So the total thing is instruction oriented. So there are some special instruction which is given by the CPU, and by this instruction, CPU can control the IO operation. So basically these are what? Special instruction IO. Now come to the next part, that is memory mapped IO. So when using memory mapped IO, the same address space is shared by memory and IO devices. So the device is connected directly to certain main memory locations so that IO device can transfer block of data to or from memory without going through CPU. So the same memory is going to be used by the CPU also and by the memory also, by the IO device also. The same address space is shared by memory and the IO devices. So what happened? Whenever some IO requirement is generated, CPU don't need to communicate with IO directly. IO can directly communicate with the memory, and CPU also can directly get the data from the memory because the same address space is shared among CPU and the IO device. So data can be shared through memory also. Maybe some IO commands is not required or it may be required, but without the IO command also it can be possible. So while using memory mapped IO, operating system allocates buffer in memory and informs IO device to use that buffer to send data to the CPU. IO device operates asynchronously with CPU, interrupts CPU when finished. So in this case, CPU and IO both can parallelly execute. So whenever IO need to communicate something, IO need to share some data with the processor, then there is a buffer area which is previously predefined for that particular IO operation, and the IO whatever data is generated, that it will be written in the buffer area, so the CPU can directly access those data. And because this is an asynchronous mode of communication, both the operation, the processing and the IO task can be parallelly done. And whenever the IO operation is complete, then IO is going to interrupt CPU. So what is the advantage of this method? That every instruction which can access memory can be used to manipulate an IO device. Memory mapped IO is used for most high speed IO devices like disk communication interfaces. Okay. Now the last one, that is direct memory access. Slow devices like keyboards will generate an interrupt to the main CPU after each byte is transferred. If a first device such as a disk generated an interrupt for each byte, the operating system would spend most of its time handling this interrupt. So a typical computer uses direct memory access hardware to reduce this overhead. So in the previous case, whenever the communication is complete, then an interrupt is going to be generated. And if the data is transferred byte by byte, then for every byte, the interrupt will be generated. So operating system will be more busy in interrupt handling. So for this reason, the previous memory mapped IO cannot be possible in that such cases. So the typical computer uses direct memory access or DMA hardware to reduce this overhead. What is it? The direct memory access means CPU grants IO module authority to read from or write to memory without involvement. DMA module itself controls exchange of data between main memory and the IO device. CPU is only involved at the beginning and end of the transfer and interrupted only after entire block has been transferred. CPU is not involved for every byte. Whenever the communication starts, then the CPU is there. After the entire block have transferred, then the end of the communication CPU is there. But in intermediate, the DMA module is going to control everything. You can see that there is a DMA module which is going to control everything in the place of CPU. So CPU is not involved here. So the memory is directly accessed by these IO device controllers. Okay. So CPU is not going to involve in that. And see, the help of the database, the data bus, the DMA can directly, and with the help of this DMA module, the main memory can be directly accessed by those device controllers. So the direct memory access needs a special hardware called DMA controller, that is DMAC, that manages the data transfer and arbitrate access to the system bus. The controllers are programmed with source and destination pointers where to read or write the data, counters to track the number of transferred byte, and settings which includes IO and memory types, interrupts and states to the CPU cycle. So DMSC is required for this kind of communication. Okay. So these are the steps for DMA. So device driver, in the first step, device driver is instructed to transfer disk data to a buffer address X. In the next step, device driver then instruct disk controller to transfer data to buffer. After that, disk controller starts DMA transfer. Disk controller sends each byte to DMA controller. DMA controller transfers bytes to buffer, increase the memory address, decreases the counter C until C becomes 0. When C becomes 0, DMA interrupts CPU to signal transfer completion. So these are the steps in which DMA have performed. So now we are going to discuss about what is the difference between polling and interrupts. The computer must have a way of detecting the arrival of any type of input. Okay. Obviously, whenever the input is come, the computer must be aware of that. There are two ways in that this can be happen. One is the polling and another one is the interrupt. So both of these techniques allow the processor to deal with events that can happen at any time and that are not related to the process it is currently running. So firstly, we are going to discuss about polling. Here you can see polling is the simplest way for an I/O device to communicate with the processor. The process of periodically checking status of the device to see if it is time for the next I/O operation is called polling. So basically this is a periodical checking. Periodically the CPU is going to check if there is any I/O operation is pending or not. The I/O device simply puts the information in a status register and the processor must come and get the information. So CPU is requesting to the I/O devices, if the device get the device ready signal, then the I/O is established. If the device is fails, then CPU is going to request again, and if there is some I/O is required, then the data transfer is. So processor initiate this and the processor periodically going to check for any I/O. So most of the time devices will not require attention, and when one does, it will have to wait until it is next interrogated by the polling program. This is an inefficient method and much of the processor time is wasted to unnecessary ports. Obviously, maybe device is not ready, they are not have any I/O operation, but the processor is going to keep polling because it is a periodical job. So compare this method with a teacher continually asking every student in a class. So just as an example, we can say if a teacher continuously asks every student to the class one after another and if they need help. One by one the teacher is asking. So obviously it is an inefficient way. And the most efficient way is what? If the student is going to inform the teacher whenever they require any assistance. That means in this space, CPU is the teacher. So CPU is going to communicate. But it would be better if the I/O devices required to perform some I/O operation, then I/O should communicate with the processor. It will be more efficient. So interrupt is basically the alternate things. The alternate scheme for dealing with I/O is the interrupt driven method. An interrupt is a signal to the microprocessor from a device that requires attention. So in this case, the device is going to do something. Okay. So the device controller puts an interrupt signal on the bus when it needs CPU attention. When CPU receives an interrupt, it saves its current state and invoke the appropriate input handler, interrupt handler using the interrupt vector. That is basically the addresses of the operating system routines to handle various events. When the interrupt device has been dealt with, the CPU continues with its original task as if it had never been interrupted. So basically what is we are going to do? Issues read command to IO module. If CPU issues some issues a read command to IO module, then the read status of the IO module is going to be checked and check status. If there is an error condition, then we cannot do anything. But if it is ready, if it is not ready, then again we are going to check status. But if it is ready, then read word from IO module, write word into memory, and if it is done, then yes, otherwise next instruction is going to be continue, otherwise no. So this is how the CPU is going to handle interrupt. So this is a comparison between the polling and interrupt. So the basic thing is what? For polling, CPU continuously checks device status whether it requires attention of CPU. But if in case of interrupt, device is going to notify the CPU if CPU requires some attention. So polling is initiated by the CPU and interrupt is initiated by the device. So mechanism from the mechanism point of view, polling is basically a protocol, but interrupt is basically a hardware mechanism. If you take in the context of CPU, in case of polling, CPU has to wait and check whether a device requires servicing, which wastes a lot of CPU cycle. But in case of interrupt, when a device requires servicing, the CPU is get disturbed, which saves the CPU cycles. Okay. If you compare with the basis of occurrence, CPU poll the device at the consistent interval. It is a periodical operation. So after a certain period, CPU is going to poll. But in case of interrupt, it can occur only something is required. So any instant of time it can be occur. It is not a periodical operation. Now from the context of efficiency, polling becomes inefficient whenever CPU infrequently finds a device ready for service. Okay, but interrupt become inefficient whenever device keeps on interrupting frequently. So basically these are the comparison between polling and interrupt, and basically this is the end of today's class. In today's class mostly we have discussed about the IO hardware, we have discussed about the device controller, we have discussed about the various devices, we have discussed about the device controllers, we have discussed about various modes of operations can be there, we have also discussed about the different kinds of access communication to the IO devices, and lastly we have discussed about polling and interrupt. So these are the things, those are mostly coming from the hardware point of view. Today we have discussed regarding the IO management. In the next class we are going to discuss about the software issues regarding the IO. So until then, thank you student, be safe.